Join me as I try to uncover my daughter's dark secret during the haunting hour of 3 a.m. Can I handle what I find? My daughter's been acting strange lately, and I've been noticing some really eerie events happening around the house, especially at 3 a.m. It's like something takes over, and my usually sweet girl becomes someone else entirely. At first, it started with just small things: doors creaking open, the sound of whispers in the hallway, and an unsettling feeling that someone was watching us. I tried to brush it off as mere paranoia, but as time went on, the occurrences grew more frequent and intense. I'd wake up to find my daughter sitting upright in bed, staring blankly into space, her eyes fixed on something that wasn't there. When I'd try to talk to her, she'd just shrug it off, saying she was just having a bad dream. But I knew better. The atmosphere in the house changed too. It felt heavy, like there was this weight pressing down on us. I'd find myself walking on eggshells, waiting for the other shoe to drop. My husband and I would exchange worried glances, wondering what was going on with our daughter. We tried talking to her, but she just seemed to shut down, unwilling to open up about what was happening. I started to question my own sanity, wondering if I was just being overly dramatic. But the events continued, and I knew I wasn't imagining things. Doors would slam shut on their own, and I'd hear my name being called out in a faint whisper. It was like someone, or something, was trying to communicate with me. That's when I started noticing the signs. Whispers in the darkness, shadows darting around the edge of my vision, and objects moving on their own. It was like my daughter was somehow connected to all of this, but I couldn't figure out how. I'd catch her staring at something in the corner of her room, her eyes fixed on something that wasn't there. When I'd ask her what she was looking at, she'd just blink and say nothing. The shadows seemed to move in sync with her movements, like they were under her control. I started to feel like I was living in some kind of horror movie, where nothing made sense and the rules of reality didn't apply. I was torn between being terrified for my daughter's safety and being angry with her for not telling me what was going on. One night, I finally saw it. I caught a glimpse of my daughter standing in her room, her eyes black as coal, her face twisted into a snarl. She was surrounded by this dark energy, like something was possessing her. I froze, my heart racing, as I realized that my daughter's secret was far more sinister than I ever could have imagined. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My whole world came crashing down around me. I realized that my daughter's strange behavior, the whispers, the shadows, it was all connected to this dark force that had taken over her. I felt helpless, like I was staring into the abyss, unsure of how to pull her back from the edge. The revelation shook me to my core. I felt like I'd failed my daughter, like I'd missed the signs, like I'd let her down. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, and I didn't know how to process it all. But as I looked at my daughter, I knew that I had to address this secret head-on, no matter how difficult it was. Looking back, I realized that this experience has changed me. It's made me more aware of the importance of addressing hidden fears and secrets within our families. It's taught me that sometimes, the things that go bump in the night are the very things that need to be confronted head-on. It's known as one of the deadliest prisons in history. Over 100 executions took place here, and hundreds more died from disease and violence within its stone walls. But it's what they say still lingers that sent chills down my spine: the spirits of the condemned. And last night I found out for myself why no one ever wants to spend the night here. The prison I'm talking about is Eastern State Penitentiary, a Gothic fortress that once housed some of the most dangerous criminals in America. Opened in 1829, its cold, crumbling walls have seen centuries of pain, suffering, and death. It's said that even now, long after it closed, the souls of the inmates who died there remain, haunting its endless, decaying hallways. But I'm not one to shy away from a challenge, so I decided to do what most people would never dare: spend an entire night alone inside its haunted cells. The moment I accepted the challenge, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake. Spending the night in the world's most haunted prison? I'm not a believer in ghosts, but still, there's something about places like Eastern State Penitentiary that feels wrong. People have reported hearing disembodied voices, seeing shadowy figures darting across the hallways, and feeling an unshakable presence watching them. It's not just the fear of what you might see, but also the isolation, the thick, oppressive air that seems to weigh on you in places like this. From the second I entered through the massive iron gates, I knew this wasn't going to be an easy night. The dim lights cast long, eerie shadows across the stone walls, and every step I took echoed like a distant whisper in the dark. I stood in front of the infamous cell block 12, said to be one of the most haunted areas, and took a deep breath. I was in for a long, terrifying night. The first hour was manageable, if you don't count the overwhelming sense of dread. As I wandered through the pitch-black hallways with only a flashlight to guide me, I couldn't help but notice how silent everything was. The silence wasn't normal. It was thick, like the prison was holding its breath, waiting. My footsteps echoed off the stone, but every so often I heard another sound, faint but distinct, a shuffling as if someone was dragging their feet somewhere down the hall. At one point, I stopped in front of cell 14, where they say prisoners would sometimes see glowing eyes in the dark. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring into the empty cell, the temperature noticeably dropping. Then faintly, I heard it, the sound of chains clanking, followed by what I could swear was a deep, low moan. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, but the air was still. There was no breeze in this place. As I explored further, strange things started happening. The walls seemed to whisper, and I'd feel sudden cold gusts of air, though there were no windows. In cell block 4, where a guard was once stabbed to death, I thought I saw a figure standing in the shadows. I called out, but no one answered. When I shined my flashlight towards it, the figure was gone. Around 3 a.m., the witching hour, things took a terrifying turn. I had set up camp near Death Row, a place notorious for strange occurrences. Suddenly I heard it, footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming towards me. My heart pounded in my chest as I whipped around with my flashlight, trying to find the source. The footsteps grew louder, closer, but I couldn't see anyone. And then, it stopped. I stood there frozen, my breath caught in my throat. Just as I turned back around, a door slammed shut, the echo bouncing off the stone walls. The sound was deafening, like a gunshot in the dead of night. I ran towards the source, my heart racing, only to find an empty hallway. There was no one. No way the door could have slammed shut on its own. Just when I thought it was over, I felt it, an ice-cold hand brushing against the back of my neck. I turned, expecting to see someone, but the hallway was empty. Empty, but not quiet. In the silence, I heard it, a whisper, a single word that made my blood run cold. Leave. By the time morning came, I was more than ready to leave. The haunting presence, the eerie noises, and the feeling of being constantly watched. It all proved one thing. Eastern State Penitentiary lives up to its terrifying reputation. Do I believe in ghosts? Maybe not. But after last night, I'm starting to wonder if there are things in this world that go far beyond what we can explain. What do you think? Would you spend a night in a place like this? Let me know your scariest ghost stories in the comments below, and tell me where you think I should go next for my next haunted adventure. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more terrifying tales from the haunted algorithm.